Gentlemen, let me start this with a brutal question. How many of you have lost yourselves in a relationship? Have you ever lost yourself in a relationship? Not just your keys or your time, but I mean losing your center, losing your purpose, and losing your sanity in that relationship. History is full of men who conquered nations. They conquered entire nations. They won wars, bloody wars where thousands were killed, but they were conquered by women in the end. In mind comes Samson and Delilah, Mark Antony and Cleopatra. We have examples like King David, okay, who was a warrior poet, he was a giant slayer, and a ruler of Israel. He risked his entire kingdom for a woman, Bathsheba. This keeps happening to many men, and it has happened to many men in history. So why does it keep happening? It happens because men walk into relationships unprepared. They are psychologically unarmed, okay? And no one taught us differently. This is one of the things our fathers did not teach us. We are not taught in school about being psychologically armed when you're walking into relationships. So tonight, gentlemen, I want to take you on a journey through one of the most consequential stories in the Bible, and it's the story of David and Bathsheba. I want to show you how even a king can lose his frame and what that will cost him. So let's start from the beginning, setting the scene. It is springtime in Jerusalem. The warm evening air smells faintly of olive oil and fresh cut cedar from the palace construction. In the streets below, David by the way is on a rooftop. We are now looking at things from David's point of view. In the streets below, merchants are closing their stalls and soldiers are off in the battlefields. They're fighting battles. Battles that kings are supposed to be leading, okay? But tonight, King David is not with his men. This particular night, King David is on the rooftop of his palace. King David at this time is a man at his prime. He has broad shoulders. He's very strong from years of war. Remember, he slayed a giant, Goliath. And he's also dressed in royal robes. But there's a weariness in his eyes. He's not thinking about strategy. He's not thinking about psalms. He's not thinking about how to make his kingdom greater. He's bored. He's restless. He's actually looking for something to stir him, you know? And men sometimes have this feeling. You feel like you want to stir some trouble. You want some excitement. David was in that particular state. So he's at the top of his palace, just looking for some excitement. And then he turns around and he sees her. He sees Bathsheba. Oh, Bathsheba, the luminous figure in the moonlight. Bathsheba's skin is glistening with water as she bathes. She's young, she's beautiful, and as she bends over to pick her bathing stuff, he's looking at her, and she paints the very picture of feminine allure and seduction. So desire hits David like an arrow or like a thunderbolt. But we'll use arrow because we like using the Cupid's image. So David doesn't just notice this woman's beauty and sexiness. He gets fixated on it. So as we're going to go through David's story and break down how David lost his frame because of this woman. So the first mistake David made was not moral, it was a strategic mistake. If you read 2 Samuel 11, it opens with these words. In the spring, when the kings go off to war, David sent Joab, but David remained in Jerusalem. That is a strategic mistake. So that's where his frame collapse begins, because he's off mission. Why is he sending his general and staying back at home? Joab was David's general. He sent Joab to lead that mission, and he stayed behind. There's a psychologist called Mihaly who wrote a book called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. And in that book, this psychologist called Mihaly explains that men thrive when they are fully engaged in meaningful struggle. Idleness is kryptonite to masculine purpose. Any man who indulges in idleness and time-wasting activities is destroying his masculinity. So David's choice to stay at home actually creates a vacuum. And I've always told you, life abhors vacuum. Something will occupy that vacuum. And in that vacuum, in David's story, his libido takes the throne. Okay? It takes the driver's seat. What's the second thing that happens? His lust overrides his leadership. So David, being the king, he has handlers, he has messengers. He sends for Bathsheba. Okay? He wants to clap those cheeks. And she is brought. And he digs her watery guts. Okay? So this is where David pedestalizes Bathsheba. He turns a fleeting sexual desire into a mission. He actualizes a temporal feeling. In The Rational Male, Rollo Tomasi calls this a shift from mission-centered living to woman-centered living. So gentlemen, you must watch yourself. Are you living a mission-centered life or a woman-centered life? Or even a beer-centered life for the guys who love too much beer? The man who killed giants, killed Goliath, he was now chasing dopamine. This is reactive masculinity. He let feelings dictate his actions rather than being a proactive leader. And the cascade continues. He now went into making reactive decisions because now he's making a mistake. He's fucking up. So after clapping those cheeks, Bathsheba became pregnant. And now David panicked. So suddenly, David is not just sinning. Now he has to scheme. He needs to cover this pregnancy up. So he recalls Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, from the battlefield. Okay? He's even now compromising the performance of his soldiers on the battle. He wants Uriah to come back home. Okay? And why is he doing this? He wants Uriah to sleep with Bathsheba so that he can cover his own tracks. So that now he can think he's the one who made Bathsheba pregnant. But Uriah, who is a soldier, a real soldier, who is mission-centered, he shows more frame than David at this particular point. He refuses to go home and enjoy pleasure while his comrades are at war. Okay? So he doesn't come. So David panics even more. This thing is now escalating. Fear replaces reason. He orders Uriah sent to the front lines. Okay? Effectively, he's signing Uriah's death warrant. Now, he's not just covering up. Now he's become a murderer. Gentlemen, this is what happens when a man loses his frame. He no longer acts from strength, but he acts from fear. Robert Greene, who wrote the 48 Laws of Power, tells us that when you commit a mistake, do not compound it by covering it up. Admit it and regain control. But David does not do this. He does the opposite. Okay? Maybe that's why his son Solomon wanted to be the most wise man in history. So David does the opposite. And with every step he sinks deeper and deeper into weakness. So you can see the consequences of frame collapse. And it becomes more interesting because now a prophet steps into the story. There's a prophet called Nathan who confronts David with a parable and then says the famous words when he challenges David. He tells David, "You are the man." Okay? So which parable did Nathan present to David? So Nathan told David about a parable which involved a rich man that had many sheep and cattle. A rich man with many sheep and cattle. There was also a poor man in that parable who had only one little female lamb, okay, which he loved like his daughter. It ate from his plate. The lamb ate from this poor man's plate. It drank from his cup and slept in his arms. He loved that lamb so much. Then when a traveler came to the rich man, instead of taking one of his own animals to prepare a meal for the traveler, the rich man took the poor man's lamb. He took the poor man's beloved lamb and then served it to his guest. So when David heard this parable, he burned with anger and he declared to the prophet that that rich man deserved to die and must repay fourfold. And then came Nathan's piercing words. So Nathan told David, "You are that man." He revealed to David that the parable was actually about David himself. David, who had taken Bathsheba and arranged Uriah's death. From that moment, David was never the same again, and he never fully recovers. Okay? Things just go downhill from there. So first, the child that Uriah was pregnant with dies. And then David's son, Absalom, he rebels and sleeps with David's concubines on the palace roof, the very place where David once lost his frame. And then violence and intrigue haunt David's household for the rest of his life. Gentlemen, this is a cost of frame collapse. So once again, the psychological architecture of the frame collapse is this. And when you're looking at the story of David, this is what it shows us. First of all, there's a mission drift. David abandons his purpose. He abandons his mission and he invites chaos. He follows lust. Okay? He follows some fleeting desire. Secondly, is pedestalization. He turns this woman into his mission. So when you make a woman your mission, you are pedestalizing her. Your mission must come before the woman. And making a woman your mission leads to self-betrayal. So you are not betraying the woman, you are actually betraying yourself as a man when you abandon your mission. The third thing is David had a reactive mindset. He made fear-driven choices. And this creates a spiral of weaknesses because he left his center. When you move off center, it's like you're losing your center of gravity. Be centered on your mission and you will never have to compromise. You will never have to act out of fear. Okay? So this reactive mindset comes because he was off center. Gentlemen, you must always be centered. And then there's also laws of respect. The kingdom, his family, and even his self-image as a king, they suffered. David was still king, but he no longer felt like one. So what are the lessons we are learning from this story of David as modern men? The first thing is you must stay on your mission. When you stop leading, you start reacting. You must always be leading. That's why even when people go for meeting, you say, what is the agenda of this meeting? You must have a purpose. Follow your purpose. Don't react. People who react are people who are not focused. That's why they say that when you take your eyes off the ball, then you start seeing problems. Okay? Secondly, guard your frame. Do not let attraction dictate the direction of your life. Attraction is fleeting. Your purpose is forever. Thirdly, you need to lead from strength, not from fear. Own your choices. If you fuck up, own that, take your loss and accept it and move on, learn from it. Don't let it become a stigma. Don't try to sweep it under the carpet. Own your choices and act from principle. Be principled. Fourth thing is, do not pedestalize a woman. Women can be part of your life and they should be part of your life, but they should not be the center of it. If they are the center of it, you're pedestalizing them. Also, you need to reclaim your throne. Your frame is the invisible throne of your life. If you don't sit on it, somebody else will. As Viktor Frankl said in Man's Search for Meaning, those who have a why will live to bear almost any how. So, to recap, gentlemen, David was a king. He was a warrior, poet. He was a man after God's own heart. But even he fell when he abandoned his mission and surrendered his frame. So what about you? Where have you abandoned your war, your purpose? Where have you pedestalized desire over destiny or over your purpose? Where have you traded your crown for comfort? Remember, you're all kings. You should conduct yourself like a king. So where have you traded your crown for comfort? You do that when you start simping. Because in every kingdom, someone is holding the frame. If it is not you, it is her. Choose carefully. I'll see you on the next one. Gentlemen, if you found value in this video, do me a solid. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with another man who needs to hear it. Here is why it matters. When you like and subscribe, YouTube pushes this content to more men out there who are struggling silently. So your simple click could be the reason another man wakes up to his reality. You could actually save a life by doing so. And for you who has already watched, subscribing makes sure you never miss these lessons. Every week, I'll be dropping strategies, red pill truths, and survival frameworks that will help you to stay sharp, stay sovereign, and ahead of the curve. So subscribe, like, share, because when one man wins, we all rise.